Academic dress is the formal attire worn by students and officials at a commencement or graduation ceremony. The most common styles emulate the everyday clothing worn by scholars at the first universities in the 11th and 12th centuries. Typically, this included a flowing gown, a hood or cape, and some sort of headwear. The contemporary form of this ensemble depends on the rules dictated by the institution with which the student or official is associated. The ancient universities were established in Italy and France in the late 11th and early 12th centuries, with the University of Oxford following in circa 1115 and Cambridge in circa 1209. It was these two English schools that set the tradition for academic dress by establishing strict decrees for their students and officials. The subsequent influence of the British Empire spread this tradition to many parts of the world. Historically, schools of higher learning were referred to as Stadium Generale or Universitas, titles conferred by the Pope of the day, with the latter being the higher honor. This early association with religion can still be seen in the similarities between academic dress and church robes. However, the early schools were not religious orders as a rule, but rather scholastic guilds made up of students and teachers organized around a cathedral or monastery. Not necessarily priests, the scholars wore clothes that were a sober reflection of lay fashions. In this respect, it was the degree that signified the scholar's full membership in the learned corporation, not the robe. In medieval times the term bachelor was used to describe the assistant of a small landowner, the apprentice as opposed to the master who was already skilled, hence the academic use of the term master as well. Both of these titles were in widespread use in the universities during the 13th century. As such, there was a structure within these institutions related specifically to the degree of knowledge obtained by the scholar. This hierarchy, along with the medieval style of clothing, became the basis of academic dress. The cap and gown. Medieval dress consisted of a flowing gown or cappa clausa, with a cape or cloak draped over the top. This often had a cowl-like appendage that could be pulled over the head, much like a hooded cape or capuccium. By the second half of the 15th century, the fashion had progressed toward an open gown, said to be an expression of the new acceptance of academic learning and the arts. From 1490 onward this gown became standard academic dress, with the hooded cape becoming more ornamental than practical. Most commonly, bachelors and masters scholars wore black gowns made of prince's stuff or crepe, with the senior man's garment having wider sleeves to allow for movement while teaching. The dress hood took the form of a drooping cape, lined with silk or fur to denote the scholar's faculty or social status. For example, in 1432 Oxford forbade the use of miniver for anyone except masters of the arts and those of great wealth or noble birth. Variations in sleeve style and lining continued to mirror fashionable dress, and by the 16th century academics followed professionals and the clergy in the wearing of caps. It is difficult to pinpoint the origins of the academic cap, but it is thought to have evolved as a variation on the ecclesiastic pileus cap and the medieval headscarf. Most contemporary graduates wear the trencher form of the pileus quadratus or the Oxford mortarboard. This consists of a small skull cap, shaped to fit the head, and a flat, square top, adorned with a silk tassel. This form of headwear became popular with the clergy after the Restoration, when it was thought that emphasizing squareness denoted greater dedication. However, the modern academic form was not popularized until the 18th century, when wood or card was used to stiffen the square. Some philosophical doctors or secular doctors may wear a variation of the Tudor bonnet, a softer, fuller hat, or if of Scottish origin, the John Knox cap. Contemporary academic dress. Most contemporary graduates wear a variation of the Oxford or Cambridge Bachelor of Arts gown. The Cambridge gown is knee-length, prince's stuff and has pointed, open sleeves. The seam on the forearm is unsewn to the cuff, allowing a generous hole for the arm to pass through. The hood is partly lined with white fur or silk that is colored to denote the degree of the wearer. The sleeveless Oxford commoner's gown sits a little below. In the United States most universities accept the Intercollegiate Code, 1895, of academic dress, a variation on the Cambridge style, but with an extensive system of color coding that denotes both the degree and the university. In many other countries students do not wear any academic dress. In Germany, it is seen as a sign of respect for the teachings of Martin Luther. In the former Soviet Union, students receive medallions. In Finland, doctors don swords for their commencement. And in many more countries, adaptations have been made to the English model, with Native Americans adding traditional jewelry and headwear, New Zealand Maoris wearing feathered capes, and Australian Aborigines adopting red, yellow, and black capes. Certainly, the fact that academic dress pays homage to establishment and tradition makes it the perfect dress for subversion. Dress in American high schools. The use of the cap and gown in American high schools originated in 1911 as a means of providing an economical and egalitarian code of dress. American educators joined with the academic dress companies to design an official ensemble for the high school graduate. It was gray, with long, pointed sleeves and the Oxford mortarboard cap. One of those who pushed for such dress in schools was the principal of Englewood High, Chicago, James Armstrong. He believed that the adoption of academic dress would ease the burden on parents to provide fashionable and expensive graduation outfits. By the early 2000s, traditional gray had been replaced by the official colors of the particular school, with religious or private girls' schools opting for white, grammar schools for maroon. Across America the cap and gown has been adopted by many institutions, with even nursery schools conferring honors on their infant graduates. This practice has not been widely emulated beyond the United States, however, some schools in Australia and Asia have adopted the practice. As a means of historical record, academic dress encapsulates medieval fashion, preserving its character and form for what is an important modern occasion, both to the graduates and to those who have carried them through their time as a scholar. Hence, this form of dress is both steeped in tradition and very distinct from everyday clothes. Such contrast clearly conveys significant achievement. Academic dress is a traditional form of clothing for academic settings, mainly tertiary, and sometimes secondary, education, worn mainly by those who have obtained a university degree, or similar, or hold a status that entitles them to assume them, example undergraduate students at certain old universities. It is also known as academical dress, academicals, or academic regalia. Contemporarily, it is commonly seen only at graduation ceremonies, but formerly academic dress was, and to a lesser degree in many ancient universities still is, worn daily. Today, the ensembles are distinctive in some way to each institution, and generally consist of a gown, also known as a robe, with a separate hood, and usually a cap, generally either a square academic cap, a tam, or a bonnet. Academic dress is also worn by members of certain learned societies and institutions as official dress. The academic dress found in most universities in the Commonwealth of Nations and the United States is derived from that of the universities of Oxford and Cambridge, which was a development of academic and clerical dress common throughout the medieval universities of Europe. This overgarment had the practical purpose of keeping a scholar warm while they were sitting, immobile, or studying. Formal or sober clothing is typically worn beneath the gown. For example, men would often wear a dark suit with a white shirt and a tie, or clerical clothing, military or civil uniform, or national dress, and women would wear equivalent attire. Some older universities, particularly Oxford and Cambridge, have a prescribed set of dress, known as subfusc, to be worn under the gown, though this sometimes refers only to requiring the proper wear of academic dress and not what is worn beneath it, if unseen. In the Commonwealth, gowns are worn open, while in the United States, with a few exceptions, it has become common for gowns to close at the front, as did the original robe. Materials. In general, the materials used for academic dress are heavily influenced by the climate where the academic institution is located, or the climate where the graduate will usually be wearing the costume, as a faculty member at another institution, for example. In either case, the American Council of Education, ACE, allows for the comfort of the wearer, and concedes that lighter materials be used in tropical climates, and heavier materials elsewhere. In addition, it acknowledges cotton, poplin, broadcloth, rayon, or silk as appropriate. The materials used for academic dress vary and range from the extremely economical to the very expensive. In the United States, most bachelor's and master's degree candidates are often presented the souvenir version of regalia by their institutions or authorized vendor, which are generally intended for very few wearings and are comparatively very inexpensive. For some doctoral graduates, commencement will be the only time they wear academic regalia, and so they rent their gowns instead of buying them. These rented or hired gowns are often made of inexpensive polyester or other human-made synthetic fiber. In Britain, rented gowns are almost always polyester, while Russell cord, silk, or artificial silk gowns are only available when bought. Undergraduate gowns are usually made from cotton or cotton and polyester mix and are relatively inexpensive to encourage students to own them. People who choose to buy their dress may opt for finer fabrics, such as poplin, grosgrain, percale, cotton, wool, cashmere, broadcloth, Russell cord, or cord/ribbed material. For silk, there are a range of types including artificial silk/rayon, ottoman, i.e. ribbed or cord silk, taffeta, satin, alpaca, true silk, shot silk, or a mixture. Pure ottoman silk is rarely used except for official gowns, as it is very expensive. Some gowns may be trimmed with gimp lace, cords, buttons, or other forms of decoration. In the past, fur has been used to line certain hoods, especially those of the UK, which range from rabbit to ermine. In the past, sheepskin was widely used. Most now use imitation fur, instead, mainly because of cost and animal rights concerns. Some robe makers use fur if the customer requests and pays for it, as some feel that the quality and feel of artificial fur has yet to match that of real fur. Doctors' robes usually use wool flannel, Panama wool, worsted, superfine cloth, damask, or brocade, and are brightly colored, or black, but faced with a bright color, to distinguish them from lower degrees. They tend to be the most expensive because they must be dyed in a specific color and/or be trimmed in colored silks. Many doctoral gowns have a special undress version, so adding to the cost of a full set. Many institutions whose dress includes gowns of varying lengths prescribe the appropriate length of each gown with reference to parts of the wearer's body. Undergraduate gowns at Cambridge, for example, must not reach the knees, whereas BA gowns should reach just beyond them, according to the university's statutes. As such, suppliers of academic dress produce gowns in many different sizes to fit persons of different heights. Thank you for watching this video.